Welcome to Storytelling as a Building Block for Literacy. I'm Rishe Adefalalu, and I'll be your host. This video is an invitation for parents, teachers, librarians, and other caregivers in the lives of Black children to use African diasporic storytelling in their work as an enrichment tool. We're using the term storytelling to refer to the performance of a story through spoken or signed language. These stories can be fictional or non-fictional. Storytelling is an ancient practice that developed as a way of sharing information and making sense of the world. Things like the triumph of a successful hunt or the origin of a great mountain would be told through simple stories. Today, many people continue to use storytelling to preserve history and teach moral lessons, as well as for pure entertainment. As the continent where human life began, it is only natural that Africa has produced many of the world's richest storytelling traditions. For well over 1,000 years, those traditions have traveled with African peoples wherever they have gone. Today you could visit Accra, Ghana, Quito, Ecuador, Paris, France, and Houston, Texas, and find someone who grew up with the Akan tales of Anansi the spider in each city. Although the African diaspora contains thousands of unique cultures spread across the entire world, our shared storytelling heritage is something we can celebrate together. Just like reading aloud, storytelling promotes literacy and communication skills by exposing children to new words, concepts, and settings, as well as to common narrative structures. Storytelling also exercises the imagination by allowing children to visualize the story in their minds, making it a stepping stone towards reading text without pictures. Storytelling is also an accessible way to increase representation. While much progress has been made in publishing, it can still be difficult to find children's books that feature people who look like our kids. It's even more difficult at a time like this, when many libraries and bookstores are only able to offer limited services. Storytelling is something anyone can do at any time, in any place, and any language, as long as you know the story. Telling stories from the African diaspora can help Black children build a positive sense of cultural identity, which boosts self-esteem and, in turn, promotes success. Keep it simple. This is probably the most important tip we're going to talk about. A lot of people who are new to storytelling want their stories to sound like beautifully written novels. They might use descriptions like, "There was a faint rustling of dry leaves, followed by the sharp snapping of tree branches, and in an instant a gargantuan bear as black as the midnight sky came crashing out of the forest edge, its crazed eyes glowing crimson in the pale moonlight." Descriptions like these are nice in a book, but there are two reasons they don't work as well in storytelling. The first is that they are very hard to remember. Ideally, you want to be able to tell your stories completely from memory, because that will make the telling more natural and organic. If you have a lot of long, complicated descriptions in your story, it'll take a lot of work to memorize it. And if you do forget something, it could easily cause you to lose your place, throwing the entire story off track. The second reason is that overloading your listeners with too much information will make it harder for them to understand and enjoy the story. It's difficult to keep up with all of those details by ear, and even more difficult to visualize them in just a few seconds. When you read a book, you can take your time and reread complicated passages, and even audiobooks have pausing and rewinding features. Storytelling, on the other hand, is less effective if you have to stop or retell parts of the story, because it disrupts the natural flow of the telling. A more fitting description of the scene with the bear would be, "There was a rustling in the trees, and suddenly a huge black bear with glowing red eyes burst out of the forest." Part of keeping it simple is also keeping it short. Attention spans vary from child to child, but for most, 5 to 10 minutes is the ideal length of a story, and anything longer than 15 minutes will probably lose their interest. For toddlers, you might want to keep things even shorter, aiming for 2 to 3 minutes. If you'd like to tell a longer tale, consider breaking it up across multiple sessions, like episodes of a television show. The suspense of wanting to hear what happens next will make children even more excited about future sessions. Use different voices for the different characters. Not only will this help listeners keep track of who is saying what, it will also help bring the characters to life. Try to express their personalities through the voices you give them. If you're having trouble coming up with voices on your own, it might help to base them off of famous actors, cartoon characters, or even people that you know. Use your body. Storytelling is a full body performance. You want to use your face, hands, arms, and any other part of you that you can to engage your audience and help them visualize what's happening in the story. You might feel a little silly at first, but being silly is a big part of what makes storytelling fun. Memorize the story. As we talked about early on, a story will flow more naturally if you take full ownership of it by memorizing it. If you're having trouble early on, it's alright to have the written story at hand in case you need to take a quick look, but you want to work towards telling it completely from memory. Remember, you don't need to tell the story word for word. As long as you cover the main plot points, you can use whatever words you want to. Instead of trying to memorize specific sentences, just remember the order of the story's events and fill in the rest. Be culturally respectful. When telling a story from a culture other than your own, it's very important to do everything you can to be respectful. Always tell listeners what country the story is from, and if possible, the specific tribe or ethnic group. Do some research on that culture to get a better understanding of their beliefs and traditions. When voicing the characters, avoid using silly or mocking accents. It's alright to dress up for your storytelling, but avoid wearing silly or offensive costumes. Remember, our goal is positive representation. Of course, the things we've covered in this brief introduction are just the absolute basics of storytelling. To learn more, use the link in the description to download the BCALA Storytelling Toolkit. In it, you'll find additional resources to help you share stories from the African diaspora with the children in your lives. We hope you've enjoyed this video, and thank you for watching.